Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentle germs. Welcome back to another video. Today is day numero 13 of the 14-day video day challenge for the month of June. And as you can tell by now, my limited Spanish vocabulary is starting to show. You know, it's pretty ironic considering a lot of people on here think I'm Dominican, but no, I am not Dominican, ladies and gentlemen. I am full-blown Ethiopian American. Ethiopia, for those who are unaware, is a country in Africa. So yeah, the more you know. Anyways, the topic for today's discussion, we're actually going to be stepping away from video games just for a little bit. Just for a little bit, because I want to talk to you guys about a movie that I've recently seen. In fact, I think this was the last film that I saw in theaters, which was ironically almost a month ago. Yeah, with the exception of a couple of movies that I've seen in May, I really haven't been going out to the theaters much this summer, which is very ironic considering that this was supposed to be one of the biggest blockbuster years for film, and yeah, it's just kind of fizzling out. But apparently Toy Story 4 is good, so yeah, I can't wait to see that. Yes, I am a grown-ass man excited about Toy Story. Anyways, today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a movie that, it's interesting. It's really, really interesting, and it's hard for me to really classify this film because it's a movie that I walked out of the theaters being immensely satisfied with, but at the same time, it's a movie that I think could have been better. And that movie I'm talking to you guys about today is none other than dun 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 dun. Let me stop before the copyright hits this channel. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking all about Godzilla, or Gojira, King of the Monsters. And as you can see here, I had to do a big for my homie Godzilla. I watched it in IMAX actually the day I got back from the Bahamas. Me and my girlfriend, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary not too long ago. And the second that we landed back at JFK, I said, babe, what do you want to do? And she's like, let's go see Godzilla. And I'm like, are you sure? We just got back from another country. She's like, yeah, let's go. So shout out to my girl. That's how you know you have a real one right there. Because I know a lot of people would be like, yeah, you know, I already pre-ordered tickets and everything. She was just like, no, we are going. So straight from the airport to the movie theater we went. But yeah, so Godzilla King of the Monsters, very, very interesting movie, as I said with the intro. And of course, as you guys can see here, this is going to be another one of these long-form, long-winded discussions. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage of choice, grab some popcorn. As you can see here, my beverage for tonight is going to be vintage seltzer water. I've been literally drinking this stuff since I was a kid, that I have like no taste for anything else, not even regular water. I love it. I love seltzer water, bro. Something so satisfying about it, especially when it's cold. As you can see here, I'm not your typical YouTuber. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get directly into this analytical discussion. But no, I like to chill and make things personal for y'all. Albeit, I'm kind of killing time at the moment. Anyways, so Godzilla King of the Monsters is the direct sequel to 2014's Godzilla, which in fact was a reboot for America's Godzilla. Basically, America had a second try. Hollywood was like, you know what? Let's do Godzilla all over again. Because, you know, that's essentially what Hollywood is. They've run out of ideas for the most part, with some very few exceptions. So they think to themselves, all right, what can we do? What can we bring back? Okay, yeah, Godzilla, let's try it. So after, excuse me, as you can see here, I love seltzer, but sometimes that has a tendency to come back. Ew, gross, man. Re-record this video. Cut it out. No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, after the disaster that was Godzilla when did that thing come out? Godzilla 98, 99? I believe it was 98. I can't recall because I have expunged that memory from the deepest recesses of my brain. And even thinking about that now is just yikes. They were just like, all right, let's do it all over again. And everyone was very excited about it. It was starring one of my favorite actors, Bryan Cranston, as I'm sure everybody knows from Malcolm in the Middle fame. And he might have been in another show. What's that thing called? Bad Breaking or something. It won a lot of awards. So yeah, there was a lot to be excited about because it finally looked like it was doing what every single Godzilla fan, every single fan of like the kaiju movies have wanted for a long time, adding epic scale and scope to the movies. Because even though we are such big fans of Japanese cinema and we're such big fans of these giant monster movies, Japan really hasn't, let's be real about life for a second. They've never given us a film that really, it reflects in the budget of the movie. That's the best way I could describe it. Let's not mince words here. Most of the productions that exist in Japan are low budget by comparison to Hollywood, which means that the visual effects, for the most part, and this has nothing to do with the fact that they use men in suits to portray the scenes. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's just some of the special effects and everything for these kind of movies that we want to see are just very there's a reason why the giant monster movies have a very hardcore dedicated fan base, and it's kind of hard to bring new fans into the fold, because if you didn't really grow up with them at the time, or you grew up with them as kids, it's kind of hard to really get new people into it. Like, you have to have a specific mindset going into it, or you have to be a person who is like grown up watching similar things, such as Power Rangers, which was, very, very similar to Godzilla in a lot of respects when it came down to the productions of the shows, being another Japanese property. But Godzilla 2014 had a lot riding on it, and as we saw with that movie, it definitely fulfilled in a lot of respects, and in some other areas it didn't really satisfy people. So you're thinking to yourself, what are they going to do with the sequel? All right, the first movie made decent money, so going forward with the sequel, all they got to do is take the criticism and make this a better movie, make this a movie about the monsters and less about the humans. And that's essentially what they did with Godzilla King of the Monsters. One of the biggest complaints for Godzilla 2014 was that Godzilla had collectively 12 minutes of screen time throughout a 2-hour movie, which is just wow. So Godzilla King of the Monsters basically doubles and triples down on all of that. So you get so many, and I mean so many, epic shots of not only Gojira, but Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. You get so many epic fights, and this was one of the movies where I thought they would spoil literally the ever-living crap out of the movie, because that's a tendency for a lot of films nowadays, especially for Warner Brothers, as we've seen with movies like Batman versus Superman, a lot of the like, take for example the Fantastic Beasts movies. They spoil a lot of stuff. Most of the DC productions in general, they spoil a lot of the cool scenes there. But for this one, they did show off a lot of the money shots, but there were even more in the film. And in the context of the film, it was great. Like, just looking at King Ghidorah and everything there, it looked like it was straight out of a horror movie. King Ghidorah in this movie was terrifying. I was just like, bro, that is insane. And some of the shots and the way that they're framed, like, I would literally grab like a 4K rip of the movie and I would just like screenshot everything and have it as like a wallpaper, because that's how beautiful the film was. I mean, just like the shot of King Ghidorah when he was up on the volcano, and then there was the cross right there, whatever the symbolism, that right there was just like beautiful. And just the use of colors in this movie, I know that was one of the biggest complaints with like the first film, is that it looked kind of washed out and dreary and drab. This one just has so many colors, ranging from blues and yellows and just like greens and then reds and everything. It's so vivid, and like, this is the type of movie that I would literally go all out, buy a 4K TV for, buy a 4K Blu-ray player, and buy a 4K copy of this just to see it in the crispest quality possible. It is that great. So if you're going into this movie and you're going into it to see nothing but giant monsters fighting, or at least see giant monsters fighting on a Hollywood epic scale, you are going to be immensely satisfied, because honestly, in my personal opinion, I think it's the best that we've ever seen in the franchise, bar none. You cannot compare the budget of this movie versus what we've seen in all the other films. And that's not to shit on the legacy of the older Godzilla movies. Obviously, those movies were made, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So it cannot compare it to something in 2019. But just watching some of the stuff here, I know I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch it. So on that front, they definitely succeeded in that. However, this film, for lack of a better term, is a Godzilla movie. It is a giant monster movie. So in that respect, a lot of the things that are accustomed to the genre exist in this, which means you have really bland and outright stupid human protagonists. Now, this should be no shocker to anybody. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say, if you are a fan of the genre and you're complaining about this movie, yet you give movies like Shin Godzilla and all the other films a pass when they have just equally as dumb human protagonists, I feel like that's very hypocritical. I, for one, wasn't necessarily bothered by the human characters in this film. However, I do feel that we've gotten to the point where we can come out with stronger human protagonists in these movies if we are going to incorporate them. Gone are the days where we really don't have to, like, how do I say this? Like, we have to shut our brain off to what's happening to the human stuff just so we can get to the giant monsters. I feel like just with all the superhero movies that we have nowadays and how they've become more than just men in tights running around trying to save the day, there's deeper meaning attached to them. We can do the same thing for the Godzilla movies. We can have the scale and the scope and the epic spectacle, and at the same time, we can have these great human characters. So on one hand, as a Godzilla fan, I'm okay with it, considering, why would I pick on this movie, yet all the other films that have come out in the history have been exactly the same. Then again, considering where we are and we have all those movies as a baseline to expand upon, I feel like they could have done better. That is my only criticism and critique for the movie, you guys. So if you're going into this as a Godzilla fan, I think you're going to be satisfied. If you're going into this as a person who's like really never seen any of the movies and you don't know what to expect, you're probably going to think this is just another dumb, giant Hollywood Michael Bay orgasm fest, which honestly, it will look like that on paper. However, in this one, the scale and the scope and the spectacle and how you can actually tell who's fighting who in this movie is so much better by comparison to a Michael Bay film. Michael Bay films basically play you for a fool. This one doesn't. It's just a wild, giant roller coaster, to say the least. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to say as the resident YouTube film critic. Because fuck that title. Let's gush the hell out about this movie. Okay. Michael Dougherty? You, my brother, have a permanent invite to the cookout. Okay? This movie is made by a Godzilla fan for Godzilla fans. This movie right here should not have ever happened. It honestly shouldn't have. Because the more and more I think about this movie and the more I watch it, the more I'm just like, how in the world did Legendary pull off a $200 million Godzilla movie and actually have it feel like a Godzilla movie? There's so much attention to detail and tender love and care that went into this movie that honestly, as a fan of the giant monster movies, I almost cried. I seriously did, because there's so much in here that if you like just fan service alone, that people would think is so dumb and it wouldn't matter, but there were so many people in my theater on opening night who just started clapping for just even like the smallest references to the older films. And when they did stuff like incorporating the classic Godzilla theme, the classic theme from 1964 in a 2019 movie. Shout out to Michael Dougherty and shout out to the composer Bear McCreary. You guys might know him. He was the composer of the recent God of War game. Dude, he found a way to somehow modernize that track, but make it feel so like real and vibrant while maintaining the roots. And when they played it in the movie, it just felt so natural. It just felt so right. And it's not like, let's just take another Warner Brothers production, Justice League, where they randomly out of nowhere brought in the Danny Elfman Batman music theme. Like, why are you doing that? That makes no sense whatsoever. Like, you have the Hans Zimmer score from the last movie, and then now you're incorporating this as some type of homage to the no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't gel. But here, oh man, I freaking geeked the hell out. And there was so much stuff in this movie that honestly you would miss had you not either been a fan or just given it some time to think about. Take Mothra, for example, right? There was a scene in the movie where I forget, I believe it was Dr. Chen. I'm not sure the exact name. But in this universe, Dr. Chen has an identical twin sister. And there was one of the shots in the movie as we were heading into the climax where it showed someone who looked just like Dr. Chen, but on the other side of the world. And you're wondering to yourself, how is this possible? Turns out that Dr. Chen had a twin sister. Both of them have a connection to Mothra. That's interesting. Fast forward to a few days after the film premieres, somebody asked Michael Dougherty about the film and some of the deleted scenes and stuff he wished he could have kept in the movie. And he said, yeah, we were going to expand upon something. We had another scene filmed with the Chen sisters and showed their connection to Mothra with a new larva. Mothra and two girls. Two girls, one Mothra. Like, you're telling me that this man doesn't get the giant monster movies? Just the sheer fact that he incorporated Mothra speaking to humans via these two women. Like, you're telling me that as a concept shows that this man doesn't get it? This man gets it. And if he could, he would have had it in the movie, but I'm sure due to the length of the film and what they wanted to pull off in it, he just decided to scrap it. There's just some things that don't make it in there. But in addition to that, the post-credit scene where you had the main antagonist, he had one of King Ghidorah's severed heads. What does that mean for the future? Mecha Ghidorah? Mecha Gojira? Who knows? Who freaking knows? And what I love is every single time this dude Michael Dougherty comes out here and he starts talking about this stuff, you learn something new about the movie. And man, it's so freaking cool. It's so cool. Like, I'm trying to remember, what was it? He was saying something along the lines of they had the classic music playing when I believe Rodan was flying. It might have been Rodan or Ghidorah. I believe it was Rodan. And everyone was just like, are you serious? And then people went back and watched the movie and they were just like, holy shit. Like, he's got all these little subtle nods and just like callbacks and references to the old movies that if you are a big fan, you are going to love it. You seriously are. And I can't wait to just go back and rewatch it. I'm definitely going to watch this movie again before it gets out of the theaters. And I'm going to buy it again on Blu-ray just to go back and like freeze frame every single thing just to make sure I didn't miss out on stuff. Because it's just so freaking cool. I loved it. I loved it. As a giant monster fan, this movie exceeded my expectations and then some. So hats off to everybody who was involved in this production. Now, that being said, let's talk about the future of the Monsterverse, as it's called, and where it's going. It should be no shocker to anybody that Godzilla King of the Monsters has not really done well theatrically. It's made less than the 2014 movie, and if things are to be believed, it looks like it's going to lose money for Legendary and Warner Brothers. And what does that mean for King Kong going forward? Because next year is Kong versus Godzilla. Warner Brothers is now kind of getting skeptical on this because Godzilla 2014 did okay. Kong did okay. This movie was supposed to be the one that I'm sure they assumed would eclipse like 700, 800 million. And with the way that the visual effects and how everything was being billed, it honestly should have. But the fact that it's probably going to earn less than its predecessor is not a good sign. Especially with Godzilla and Kong coming out next year. So does this mean that Warner Brothers is going to do some course correcting last minute like they did with Justice League? It remains to be seen, but apparently they said they're not opposed to pushing it back to make sure that this is the film that the fans want, which is very ironic considering most of the fans love this movie. This isn't a case of BVS where it's like, oh, the critics don't know, the fans are right. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just a select group of outspoken individuals. I'm going to be nice for today. Who just said that people don't understand BVS because Stanley Kubrick has nothing on Zack Snyder or something like that. Whatever. But, yeah. Honestly, if this film bombed with critics, did really well with fans, and it made money, I think they would have stuck to the original vision. But going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if they did change it. But maybe it could be for the better. Maybe they're going to go ahead and actually do some reshoots to make the human characters more tolerable and more believable. But again, you're going to be refilming a lot of the movie in that situation, and how much can you do in such a short amount of time, less than a year? And if they push it back, you have a whole year. It's looking kind of spooky, to say the least. But yeah, it kind of sucks that this movie is not getting the recognition it deserves as far as that is concerned. Maybe if they picked a different time, it would have. I mean, we did have a lot of movies in May. We had the bleed over from Avengers Endgame. We had Aladdin. We had a couple of films that basically just Godzilla was sandwiched in between, and the fact that it didn't really resonate with a lot of people the way that people expected kind of shows. But regardless of that, man, I loved Godzilla King of the Monsters. I thought that it was a damn fine giant monster movie. I think that they should have done better when it comes to the human side of things and making some of those protagonists. I mean, they're not bad, but I mean, listen, they're literally just there to advance the plot to get us to the giant monsters. They'll end up doing stupid things just to get us to the giant monster fight, which is okay, you know, because the scale and scope of this movie more than make up for it. And that musical score, it's literally it's breathtaking. Anyways, what did you guys think of Godzilla King of the Monsters? Comment down below and let me know. And for me to you for now, my name is NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.